Geopolitical risk assessment, strategic implications of the Strait of Hormuz blockade. Here is my expert opinion on the current state of the US-Iran standoff. The United States and the Islamic Republic of Iran have reached a critical strategic inflection point, characterized by a transition from static, sanctions-based economic pressure to active maritime confrontation. This shift represents a departure from traditional containment strategies toward a more volatile state of kinetic friction in global sea lanes. The current standoff is no longer merely a diplomatic impasse, but a high-stakes struggle for maritime dominance, where the threat of escalation is being used as a primary negotiating instrument. The current U.S. executive posture is defined by a rigorous ultimatum, the pursuit of a perfect deal, or a commitment to finish the job. This rhetoric signals that the administration's patience for protracted, unproductive diplomacy has reached its limit. The stated willingness to escalate to direct military intervention if negotiations fail has fundamentally altered the risk landscape, forcing both regional and global actors to account for the possibility of a decisive military conclusion to the current standoff. This intensifying diplomatic and military standoff has transitioned into the strategic weaponization of the global energy supply, specifically through the enclosure of the Strait of Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz remains the primary center of gravity for global energy security. Due to the high volume of hydrocarbon transit concentrated within this narrow corridor, any disruption serves as a potent economic instrument of coercion. By effectively closing the strait, Tehran has introduced a level of systemic volatility that forces the international community to price in a conflict premium, turning energy flow into a direct weapon of geopolitical arbitrage. The strategic "so what" of the current closure lies in the creation of a geopolitical catch-22 for the United States. While the US maintains an overwhelming conventional military advantage, using that force to reopen the strait risks a protracted conflict that could trigger a global recession. This provides Iran with an asymmetric equalizer. Despite its conventional military degradation, it can project power by holding the global economy hostage, thereby forcing the US to weigh the domestic political costs of high energy prices against the strategic benefits of maintaining maximum pressure. This weaponization of global markets is the regime's primary survival mechanism, standing in stark contrast to the reported collapse of its conventional military infrastructure. Current executive assessments indicate a profound degradation in conventional Iranian force projection capabilities. The administration has signaled that the Iranian Navy and Air Force have been effectively neutralized, leading to the characterization that the regime is negotiating on fumes. This scenario creates a significant strategic paradox: a nation attempting to maintain an aggressive, high-leverage diplomatic posture while its traditional defense structures are operationally exhausted. The executive branch's assertion that the Iranian Navy is gone and the Air Force is gone suggests that sustained economic pressure has successfully starved the Iranian military of the resources necessary to maintain a blue water fleet or a modern air defense network. However, a professional risk audit suggests a critical distinction. While conventional capabilities may be depleted, Iran's ability to execute a blockade likely persists through asymmetric means, such as naval mines, fast attack craft, and shore-based missile batteries. Thus, while they are negotiating on fumes in a conventional sense, their capacity for regional disruption remains intact. The strategic rationale behind Iran's current skirmish strategy is to project regional influence while masking internal conventional vulnerabilities. By initiating low-level kinetic engagements through a network of non-state actors, Tehran seeks to demonstrate a reach that its own military can no longer sustain. These actions serve as a smokescreen, intended to manufacture negotiating chips and project strength to both domestic and international audiences. Iran utilizes a multi-vector proxy network to execute this strategy. 1. Hezbollah, utilizing kinetic strikes against Israel to maintain a northern front and embolden the regime's regional standing. 2. The Houthis, orchestrating disruptions in the southern maritime corridors to extend the threat beyond the Strait of Hormuz. 3. Iraqi Shia militants, exerting localized pressure on U.S. assets and personnel to increase the political cost of the American presence in the Middle East. This strategy, however, carries the high risk of catastrophic overreach. If the regime miscalculates the tolerance threshold of its adversaries, it could trigger decisive U.S. or Israeli retaliatory action. Such an escalation would likely be designed to rapidly reverse the current dynamic, potentially targeting the very regime stability that these skirmishes are intended to protect. Ultimately, these regional disruptions are calibrated to influence U.S. domestic sentiment and force a retreat from the current policy of maximum pressure. There is an inextricable nexus between Middle Eastern maritime crises and U.S. domestic political stability. The Iranian regime recognizes that energy prices are a primary driver of American political sentiment. By targeting the global energy supply, Iran is not merely attacking a commodity, it is attempting to manipulate the domestic political urgency of the United States government. The administration remains deeply concerned that rising energy prices act as a pervasive tax on the American economy, potentially eroding the political capital required to maintain a hardline stance. Tehran's strategy is bolstered by the perception that it is not acting in a vacuum. Intelligence suggests that Russia and China are providing Iran with behind-the-scenes accounts and intelligence reporting on the depth of U.S. domestic concerns over economic instability. This external support allows Iran to fine-tune its disruptive tactics to maximize their impact on U.S. policy decisions. The intelligence gap. To mitigate these risks, the Director of National Intelligence and the CIA are actively pulsing sources to close critical intelligence gaps. The primary objectives are to identify whether the Iranian leadership, specifically the IRGC, perceives current U.S. leverage as a credible threat or a manageable pressure, seek empirical evidence of behavioral change within the regime as a result of sanctions and military signaling, monitor the extent to which foreign adversaries such as Russia and China are successfully enabling Iranian resistance through intelligence sharing. Strategic synthesis. The current risk landscape is defined by an extreme asymmetry. While the Iranian regime is conventionally depleted and arguably negotiating on fumes, its ability to weaponize the Strait of Hormuz remains its most potent surviving asset. The blockade is not a traditional naval operation, but a direct assault on the U.S. domestic economy. The success of U.S. strategy will depend on whether the administration can maintain domestic stability in the face of rising costs, while the intelligence community determines if and when the regime's fumes will finally run out. I'm TheJRStewart, your YouTube deep thinker. If you enjoyed listening to my thoughts on the Iran war, please like and subscribe so I can bring you more content.